Okay, so I don't know if you got this email about supplies to bring. I hope you did, but if you didn't, I'm using a piece of cardboard. It's approximately 3 inches by 3 inches, and I like to cut a notch on either end. Okay, I've already done that. Then I like cooking twine. You could use yarn, you could use other string. Cotton is best because it's more absorbent. And I use that little notch to pull my string in to anchor it. And then you can randomly wrap this around your piece of cardboard and you're ready to go. Okay, then if you don't have a sponge brayer, you can brush this on with a paintbrush. I'm using that Craft Smart liquid black acrylic I recommend you get at Michael's. And I've got this little paint tray. And I'm going to roll ink onto my cardboard stamp. And I like to just work my way across the page. I like to rotate my stamp as I go. Not sure why this isn't focusing. Come on. Okay, there we go.
Once you have it focused, you can turn off autofocus. Autofocus is the problem of why it goes soft.
Where is that?
I don't know, but I think it's, well, I'm not sure what you're using for. Do you have a webcam or do you have
Yeah, it's a camera above.
Supposedly there are controls within your computer that allows you to turn off the autofocus.
Okay, well, I'll look into that later. Okay, so I think you get the idea. You keep going, you know, periodically you need to re-ink. I've had people say, I'm not going to do this grid-like fashion. I'm going to, you know, go randomly. That's kind of interesting. You know, just play with it, have fun, see what you get.
So you are printing on Bristol board?
Yes, I'm printing on Bristol board. You can, you know, you could do it on canvas. You could do it on watercolor paper. Okay, I'm just, this is new. I'm doing this overall pattern. Okay, so then I'll set that aside to dry. Here's another one I did earlier, totally different when it's in that more of a grid-like thing versus this overall. Okay, and I can reuse this stamp if I want. Okay, now I'm going to get into color mixing. And I am going to do, I'm going to mix red, and I'll do a tint and a shade of red. If I can open my paint tube here. Okay, so now the tricky thing with red, I remember as a kid, I would tend to put out a huge blob of red and then add white to that to get pink. And it would take forever because the red pigment is so strong, it takes a lot of white to turn it into pink. So with strong colors like red, I think it's helpful to start on the lighter end of the scale. So a big pile of white and bring it up slowly, add a little bit of red, okay? So here's that angled palette knife I was talking about. And I think it's useful to have some rags handy. I've got one that's a little bit wet. So with the completely flat or offset palettes, all the paint gets stuck under there, which I know is what you're finding frustrating. So I'm just going to start with a little bit of red. See, a little bit goes a long way. And it is going to get onto the side of that palette knife, but you keep mixing. I'm kind of scooping and turning. You know, if you're into cooking, which I know Tasha is, or if you've watched those videos of people that make chocolates, this reminds me of mixing the chocolate. Okay, so I'm kind of scraping off this flat part of the palette to get off that red paint, to blend it as evenly as possible. And when I get close, probably a good thing to do would be just to wipe that off with my wet rag. Okay. And then
Laura, are you using the open type of acrylic or are you using the regular?
I'm not using open right now. I'm just using regular.
Thank you.
Okay, so then I wiped it off and okay, there's my first pink right there. Okay, now I'll add a little bit more red. Oh, what I meant to do was reserve some of that off to the side so I can paint it in my painting, but I forgot to do that, but I'll do that the next round. I'll show you. So it's good. It's really good to practice this. And then if you were working on a larger painting, you'd have your color scale. And then I really can't tell you amounts, but you'd obviously scale up the amount of paint you wanted to mix depending on the area you had to cover. And that's just something you learn over time. Okay. Next one there. I'm going to save a little bit over here to paint in my painting later.
Laura, it's Janice again. Do you have trouble? It seems to me sometimes the paint dries out really quickly.
Well, this one isn't, but that's when you might want to use something called Open Acrylic by Golden. It's a longer dry time. And there are mediums you can add to keep your acrylic paint, you know, let it dry more, what's the word, slowly. I can give you, after I'm done doing this, I can go in the house and get the bottle and show you what that medium is. Okay, so then here's the next one. I'm saving a little bit off to the side there. So hardly any red paint here, right? Just little dabs of, and it's going to be the same with the black. And then it's just like cooking, you know, you might want to make notes like, oh, this is a cadmium red and a titanium white. And then you have this in your, you could have a reference file. Ceramicists do the same thing for making glazes. They've got, it's a recipe, right? Saving a little bit more off to the side.
So Laura, some of the colors like the phthalos are much stronger, so you use far less. Is that-
Yes. So I think you kind of have to assess which is my lighter color or which is my more highly pigmented color. Okay, saving more off to the side. And I'm deliberately adding a little bit more red, right? I'm trying to bring it up a little bit faster just so you can see the contrast difference. And for this, it's nice having a smooth surface like a piece of glass or plexiglass or this palette paper I'm working on. Okay, so that one, Janice, it wasn't completely mixed in, so that does happen. There, you know, there's other ways of working too. Some artists like to have the mixing just occur directly on the canvas. Just as long as you're aware of your options. Okay, and then I'll do one final one and I'm going to add a lot of red just to see what I get there. Okay, so there's that scale, and obviously there's still a lot more space in here for even darker pinks. Okay, now I'm going to do a red and black scale. I'm going to shade. And this time I'm going to be adding the black slowly to the red. Because if I work it the other way, it's the same thing. I'm going to have to add a lot of red to the black to get it to lighten up. Okay. And I'm saving some off to the side there. Just a little dot goes a long way. Actually need more red. Won't have enough to paint with. It's kind of a maroon.
Laura, would you ever use a brushed mix?
You can, and that's what I used to do a lot because the palette knife kind of drove me nuts. The problem with that is by mixing big amounts of paint with the brush, a lot of the paint gets pushed into the back of the brush where it attaches to the handle, and then it often dries there and kind of ruins your brush. So you definitely are going to mix paint with your brush, but I think it's better for smaller amounts. This is better for bigger amounts. And this one, I do like that I can flatten it out and get some of the paint off of that surface. A little bit harder for me with those offset palette knives. And then at the end, I'll show you, you can also use this palette knife as a painting drawing tool. Okay, I'll do a couple more and then I'm going to go into just a little bit of painting on that print. And if you're in any other of the classes this week, I'll mix a different color, like maybe a blue or something tomorrow. Okay, I'll go much darker here. Okay. Okay, so there's a cadmium red tinted and shaded palette. Okay. All right, now I'm going to take the stamp thing that I made and I'll do this kind of quickly. I won't do the whole thing. So usually I add water and then I kind of spontaneously, I just fill in some of the shapes between these lines, but I like to do it in an overall manner. So it's balanced. Right now, I'm not using a lot of water. I decided I'm going to go more impasto, a little thicker here. Now I'll use some of my shaded red, almost looks brown. Again, I'm going quickly, just all over, not giving it too much thought. Okay, I'm not going to complete the whole thing. I think you get the idea. But now I'm going to show you what to do with that leftover paint on my palette. So I just grabbed a piece of paper. It could be on paper, it could be on canvas. Hang on, I've got to find my palette knife. Okay, so I have all this leftover paint and I don't want to waste it. And so I draw with it. I like to use that flat side. And I usually have a stack of this paper and I do a bunch of these. Okay, you can also use this angled side to draw with, so I can make lines. I like it when I scrape over another color, it tends to show through in kind of an unusual way. I can make smaller blobs. There's even this little narrower side angle thing. I'm going to try that. I get smaller marks. And that looks pretty good for this one. I still have a lot of paint left that I could make a whole bunch more. But what I love about this is, you know, you've done all this technical work, but then I can have fun with this one really quickly and playfully. But I could add, there's more that I could add there. I could paint something else on top. So those are 3 different things that you can do today.